welcome to another episode of Deep Thought Thursday, which could be my favorite day of November. I know I've said that about a couple other days, but I'm figuring out which topics I like the most. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so for today's Deep Thought Thursday, I have recently had an epiphany in my life with the way that I operate when it comes to my wounds. So this is something that's been really big for me because as I've been someone who actively works on myself, whether it be through reading self-improvement content, applying it, coaching, hiring coaches, just taking a life coaching course, like I know how to deep dig and I feel like I've uncovered so much about myself. But recently I, uncovered, let's say, a block or just became aware of something that was very much in my blind spot that has connected a lot of dots within myself. I shared this with Lauren and she was able to relate and release some of her own suffering, let's say, or bring awareness to something that she's been going through. So I thought, you know what, why not share it with all of you guys and hopefully something resonates. Okay, so as you guys know, earlier in this month, I shared another Deep Thought Thursday where I spoke about my anxiety and how I've reframed it as trying to recognize that an evolve is coming, a transformation, an energetic up level of some kind. And this was the case because I overcame the anxiety, you guys. I overcame it again, as we always do, and I figured out my evolve. I had my energetic up level because each time I come to the conclusion of why the anxiety had to be there, I gain my power back and it's flippin' amazing. It just feels really good. I feel really good right now. I feel like Princess Peach on Star Power or something. So let me get into this for you. Okay, so as you guys know, my story, my background, my relationship with my mother is where a lot of my issues, let's say, have stemmed from. So when I was born, essentially she rejected me because she had postpartum depression and just didn't have the capacity to give me or show me the love that I needed as a child. And what I noticed about my wounds is that rejection is there. Rejection is a huge fear of mine in any capacity. Rejection is massive. And there's also this theme of abandonment. And there's also this theme of not good enough, unlovable. And a lot of this became present in ayahuasca, so I have to give a big thank you to ayahuasca for opening a lot of this up for me too. It just kind of seems like a natural evolve, like it's all coming to the surface. It's all beginning to make sense now. So when my mom initially rejected me as a child, through my childhood, I felt abandoned. And because I felt abandoned, I tried to compensate for this feeling of not feeling worthy or not being lovable with perfectionism, with like overgiving, trying to make her love me, let's say, or trying to find this love from her, within her. And it caused me to just always battle with myself. Like nothing was ever perfect, but I would try and I would try and I would try, and it just created a lot of like vicious cycles, let's say, in my own mind, because it doesn't matter if like I could get good grades or something like that, or do the best I could or win something at school. It just never felt good enough, and there was no contentment there because of this perfectionism, because the perfectionism was not met with the love that I was seeking. Okay, so present day now, these wounds still show up for me. I have a major fear of rejection. I know that. I know that I have that, which is probably why I don't really, or haven't really dated significantly in this past chapter of my life, because I'm too afraid of getting rejected. And anytime I might have felt rejection coming, or if I felt that I was maybe developing feelings that were a little bit stronger than I was used to, what I would do was pull up this theme and take action on it, which is, you can't abandon me if I abandon you first. And boom, escapism. There goes me out there leaving the situation behind, even if it was something that felt really good or was positive in my life. I just couldn't handle the fear that I would be rejected, because based on my past, it was inevitable that like at some point I'm going to become abandoned, so I might as well save myself now. Protection mechanism. And what happened recently in my life is that I received a message from someone, and it was not necessarily a rejection, but the only, like, this message could have been, you know, really long, but the only word, the only message that hit me was rejection. And immediately I responded from my wounded place. And my wounded place is that fear that I'm a victim, that I need to protect myself, as in like, I can't do this anymore, bye. And when I reacted in that moment, because normally I'm someone who, if I face reactions, like if I have emotions come up out of nowhere, I can generally control them and sit with my emotions and then decide what I want to say, but I caught myself reacting in the moment. And I was like, oh, okay, we got this now. The anxiety is here and I got a trigger, so it's time to dig. So I went to work on myself. Asking myself why this one message caused me such an emotional reaction. And as I dug, I realized it was this rejection, abandonment, and without even sifting through the words of another, without even thinking about the perspective of another, without even thinking about anything else other than myself, in that wounded moment, I put up my walls. And the crazy thing is that when we put up our walls for protection, we're not protecting ourselves, because if we do not choose to evolve in our discomfort, we will be faced with repetition. History always repeats itself. 1 minute, camera is dying. Sorry guys, that sometimes happens, especially in November when you're filming so much. Okay, so back to it. What I was talking about was the walls. When we put up our walls, we are actually just blocking a lesson from being learned. And as we know, history repeats itself. If you do not choose to learn the lesson, it's gonna pop up again in your life. I can vouch for this, and I know those of you out there can relate to this as well. And so if we actually choose to not learn in the moment, to not persevere, just react from our wounds, we will never heal our wounds. And, you know, I would say like it probably took me a good 24 hours to like sift through my emotions and rise up from feeling like a total victim back to my normal state of being, and think about how Zoe would honestly respond to this and not a wound. Things changed. Like, I responded in the way that was myself, and I could tell that I healed a part of me, you know? Like, I chose to act differently than I've always acted before whenever I would face something like rejection. And sometimes, like, I encourage you guys, seek out the labels in which you label things that are being projected at you. So for example, if somebody sends you a message and it triggers you in some way and it causes you to retreat, like I said that I retreated, ask yourself, like, am I actually reading this right? Or like, what is the theme that I'm internalizing this as? Because that's where the magic hides. When you can understand your own themes, you can figure out your map, like I showed you, which is, that I showed you with my hands, because I always talk with my hands, but is rejection, abandonment, and then not good enough, unlovable. And from there, I was able to just see these patterns in my life and how I could choose to act in a different way. So I wanted to bring that to your guys' attention today, is just to seek out in these moments of discomfort, in these moments we were triggered, try your best not to react in the moment, but to recognize that when you are reactive, if something like strikes a chord with you in some way or fires you up, that's your wound. And you should ask yourself, like, what is the wound? Because for me, it's like fear of rejection, like I said, or fear of abandonment. And from those wounds, I create themes and have created, because I'm working on destroying them, but have created themes in my life like, you can't abandon me if I abandon you first. And how does that ever support my end goal of an unconditional, nurturing love in my life? It doesn't. It doesn't at all, in the slightest bit. It's a self-sabotaging thing that we do for ourselves. It's our ego. It thinks it's protecting us when really it's just stopping us from learning lessons that we need to learn. And if we didn't learn them, they're gonna pop up again. So I encourage you guys, sift through the wounds when they pop up. I'm telling you, take as long as you need to not be in a reactive state. Like I said, I received one message. It literally took me 24 hours to respond because I was figuring out my own wound. So I just wanted to share that with you today. And I hope it grants you a learning opportunity or a different perspective. Hope you've enjoyed Deep Thought Thursdays with me, and I'll see you again tomorrow.